have our next DeFi 101 creative workshop, and I'm joined with Brave New DeFi. Lovely to speak with you and have you with us for Fashion Week.
Yeah, nice to talk with you too. Thanks so much for having us.
No problem.
I'm really looking forward to sharing some information about the Mutual and how people can protect their productive assets using Nexus cover products.
Great. Then look, we'll let you take it away, show your presentation, and at the end we will have an AMA session with some of the community and their questions and those listening in. So thank you so much, Brave New DeFi, for joining us. And yeah, take it away, and I'll add your screen as well.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Brave New DeFi with Nexus Mutual. Today I'm going to talk about smart contract risk and how to stay safe in DeFi. So with the Mutual, as long as you're a member, anyone can buy cover. So Nexus is a platform where communities can share risk on their own terms. Underserved markets in the crypto ecosystem can be accessed in a global and cost-effective way. And because Nexus lives on the blockchain, crypto empowers our mission, and it's our core market at the same time. So I'll talk a little bit about smart contract risk. So decentralized finance depends on trustless, secure smart contracts that can safely custody funds. Turning your idle assets into productive assets is important, but it's also important that things are safe when they're in the custody of any given protocol. So safe and secure contracts are dependent on code behaving as it's written and designed, but that doesn't always happen. So sometimes code behaves in an unintended way, and that can lead to a loss. New developments within DeFi can create new attack vectors. So for example, when flash loans were enabled, there were a lot of flash loan attacks in 2020 and some earlier this year. So flash loans are still an attack vector that causes loss within DeFi. And we refer to the building blocks in DeFi as money Legos. But as you stack these money Legos on top of each other, you're creating stacked risk, and that can be very difficult to manage. And with the blend of centralized assets like USDT and USDC, where the backing currency isn't always clear, and then decentralized assets, having these two mixed together in the same market can create some unique risks as well. And then protocols can, when they're under extreme stress, behave as intended from a code point of view, but loss can still occur. And a great example of that is the MakerDAO Black Thursday event, and I'll cover that a little later in the presentation. So if we look at DeFi-related hacks to date, we're approaching $1 billion in affected funds within DeFi. So we can see that it's grown quite a bit year over year. And it's also important to note that as the value of these assets goes up, the incentive for hackers to act maliciously and take funds grows over time. So there's a great chart from the block that Frank Researcher on Twitter has put together. And we can see here the number one cause, other than the undefined others category, is a missing sanity check within the code. And what that means is there was something in runtime that wasn't caught before the contracts were live. A really good example of this was the recent Poly Network attack. So in that attack, the hacker was able to call a contract and execute a function that they shouldn't have been able to. And that function allowed them to take custody of all of the assets on the network. And then the next leading cause would be Oracle attacks. While this isn't always directly on the protocol that's being attacked, they can, a hacker can cause and create an imbalance within another protocol that is either the price feed or is used by a protocol. A good example of this would have been the YDE Vault hack earlier this year, where there was an imbalance created in the free pool, and the hacker, through arbitrage, was able to take $11 million in funds from Yearn before the Yearn team was able to get in the war room and stop that attack from happening. So, and then we can see that logic bugs, math errors, reentrancy attacks, and then the undefined others category make up the rest. So there are quite a few attack vectors that exist in DeFi, and Nexus mutual cover products can help protect against a variety of these risks. So if you're a member of the mutual, you can buy discretionary cover products to protect your productive assets in DeFi. If you hold NXM, you're also sharing risk with other members. And as a member, you can act as a risk assessor to back cover policies by staking NXM against protocols, custodians, and cover products that you feel are safe, secure, trustworthy, and have bug-free code. Members can also act as claims assessors to evaluate claims by staking NXM. And members can put forward governance proposals and vote on governance issues whenever a new cover product is launched. That's always something that's voted on. And members can contribute funds to the mutual and hold NXM tokens. If ETH is contributed to the capital pool, NXM tokens are minted and held by a member in exchange. And it's important to remember that NXM is fractionalized membership and fractionalized ownership of the capital pool among members. So like I said before, members can buy discretionary cover products. And the cover products that the mutual has at the moment are yield token cover, which is full stack protection across smart contract systems, protocol cover, which is comprehensive protection within one smart contract system, and custody cover, which is comprehensive protection for deposits held by custodians. Again, risk assessors stake NXM and provide capital to back cover policies and create available cover. And then claims assessors are members who stake NXM to evaluate claims. So let's talk a little bit about some of the cover products that the mutual has. With yield token cover, you can protect the full stack of risk. So again, when those money Legos are stacked on top of each other, yield token cover allows you to cover the full stack. So if you hold yield token cover, you're protected in the event the face value of your interest-bearing token depegs from the market value by more than 10% for 4 hours or more continuously. In the event of a qualified depeg, a member who holds yield token cover can exchange the interest-bearing token for 90% of the face value. And they can exchange, excuse me, they can exchange that interest-bearing token within 14 days of the cover period ending. To give you a breakdown of how that works, we can look at some of the YDE vaults. So when you put an asset into YDE, the YDE team has strategies that optimize yield. So we can see with the YDE Vault that underneath that, there are 4 strategies. And across those strategies, there are a variety of smart contract systems, protocols underneath. So your DAI is exposed to all of that underlying risk. And with yield token cover, you can protect risk within every single smart contract system underneath. We can see with USDC that there's even more protocols underneath that vault. And yield token cover does protect against a depeg for the USDC token. Because payouts are denominated in DAI, if there was a depeg of the DAI token itself, that wouldn't be able to be covered. Because if you swap a payout for DAI and DAI is depegged, then that would be the one event where we couldn't cover a depeg event. But we can cover depeg events for USDC and USDT. And then there are some synthetic ETH yield token cover products, one of them being the YDE Curve staked ETH Vault. So for this, you get protection in the YDE protocol, the Curve protocol, and then the Convex protocol underneath, which are the current strategies. And if the ST-ETH token itself were to depeg, you would be covered there. So there are also yield token cover products for idle assets and yield token cover products for other Curve vaults. But you can see here that with one cover product, you can cover quite a bit of underlying risk. With protocol cover, you're protected in the event of a loss within one smart contract system. So a protocol itself would be that system when you put funds into a yield aggregator like Yearn. There are smart contract systems that underlie that, like I just covered in the last slide. So protocol cover protects within one smart contract system like Aave or Compound. And protocol cover policy protects against code being used in an unintended way, which is a hack or an exploit, among others. And then economic design failure, which is something like the MakerDAO Black Thursday event, where the system was functioning correctly, but on that day, prices dropped precipitously and there was a lot of congestion on the network. So keepers were able to liquidate ETH lots for 0 DAI amounts. And I'll cover that in a little bit more detail in just a little bit here in this presentation. There's protection against severe oracle failure or oracle price manipulation. So if a price feed is inaccurate or an oracle is being attacked and that leads to a loss for the protocol, that's covered. If there's something like an imbalance created in the Curve 3 DAI pool, or the Curve 3 pool, I'm sorry, and there's a loss incurred like there was in the YDE Vault hack, that is also something that's covered. And then a governance attack. If there is a governance initiative that ends up resulting in a loss of funds for a user, then that is also a covered event. And protocol cover also protects assets on other layer 2s, on scaling solutions. So for that, if you look at Optimism and Arbitrum, ZK Sync, all of those are covered. Commit chains like Polygon, those are covered as well. And there is coverage for non-Ethereum smart contracts. And that just means any EVM compatible chain like Phantom or XDAI, Solana. And then if you put assets into one protocol like Curve is on XDAI and Phantom and all kinds of chains. Any assets that are deployed within one protocol are protected across multiple chains under one policy. So if you had deposits on Phantom and XDAI in Curve, that would be covered under one policy. So an example of that is SushiSwap, which SushiSwap is everywhere on all the chains. So with the SushiSwap protocol cover protection, you get protection for deposits across multiple chains and on layer 2 and scaling solutions. You can protect Sushi LP positions on Phantom, Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, Polygon, and XDAI. All of those would be covered under one policy, like I have pictured here. And then filing cross-chain claims is easy. So when you go to file a claim, if you experience a loss event, the entire process is just a walkthrough in the Nexus UI. So the Nexus user interface just kind of walks you through all the steps and allows you to sign if you're using a wallet address that isn't your whitelisted membership wallet address. It's all very easy to use. And we have documentation in the Nexus docs too about how all that works. And then custody cover. The protections here are pretty comprehensive. So if you hold custody cover, you're protected in the event loss of funds occurs due to the fact that a custodian-wide hack that results in more than 10% of funds being lost occurs, or if withdrawals from the custodian are halted for more than 90 days. And the way that this cover policy is designed, if there is a loss and off-chain proof of loss is provided, if it doesn't fall within the first clause, it's covered by the second one. Because if you can't withdraw assets for more than 90 days, then you're covered under custody cover. And so a good example of that is the Nexus custodial lending platform. So here users can earn very good yield rates on USDC, DAI, USDT, ETH, BTC, a variety of assets. So if a user were to put in funds into Nexus, if more than 10% of funds were lost due to a hack, members who hold cover, in this case custody cover, would be protected. If there was a freeze on assets in Nexo, let's say due to regulatory issues, if Nexo became insolvent, anything along those lines, if withdrawals are halted for more than 90 days, cover holders are protected. And if there's any event that causes assets to be frozen within Nexo and withdrawals are prevented for more than 90 days, that's covered as well. So it's important to note what backs cover policies. As I said before, risk assessors who stake NXM against protocols, custodians, and yield token cover products are able to back that cover with NXM. Because NXM is correlated to capital in the capital pool, that NXM is able to back cover and create available and open cover for members to purchase. So if there is a loss event, NXM is burned to facilitate claim payouts, and NXM would be burned on a proportional basis across all risk assessors. For example, in the Yearn YDE Vault incident, the average risk assessor had a little under 10% of their NXM burned. So again, in that way, members share risk. And the amount of NXM staked determines the cost of cover. So if there is not a lot of NXM staked against a protocol, custodian, or yield token cover product, then the cover premium might be prohibitively high. If there is more than 40 or 50,000 NXM staked, then the cost of cover comes down to the minimum of 2.6% for annual cover. And risk assessors, in exchange for staking NXM, taking on some risk, and backing cover policies and creating open and available cover, risk assessors receive a share of cover premiums for staking NXM against platforms and cover products. So in this sense, risk assessors earn 50% of cover premiums shared proportionally, and those can be claimed once a week on Mondays. And members can also act as claims assessors. So if a loss event occurs and a claim is filed, a cover holder can file a claim in the same way that I talked about before. They can go to the Nexus UI and click through that process. All of that is outlined in the Nexus user interface, and we have documentation that talks about how that operates as well. So claims assessors would stake NXM and discuss claims within the Nexus Mutual Discord. Discussions are usually pretty robust, and claims assessors have to stake NXM for a certain period of time before they can vote. When claims assessors vote on claims, there has to be at least 70% or greater consensus and 5 times the cover amount or more in voting weight. So if $1 million cover policy is being evaluated, there has to be at least $5 million worth of NXM staked to vote on that with 70% or greater consensus to pass that vote. So a voting period lasts 36 hours. And after that 36 hours is up, there has to be at least voting stakes of greater than 10% the cover amount, or 72 hours have passed. So if these guidelines aren't met, if there's 51, 49% consensus, or there isn't the necessary amount of voting weight, then it goes to full membership vote, where everyone in the protocol can stake their NXM and vote. And the way that the mutual solves the principal agent problem is if a claims assessor is caught voting fraudulently or maliciously, they can have their staked NXM burned. So we had this happen recently where a member submitted a claim where no loss occurred, and then they voted yet in favor of approving their own proposal for their claim. So in this sense, the advisory board evaluated it and decided that they had voted fraudulently, and their NXM was burned. So sometimes people are worried that the mutual wouldn't pay out for a claim. Members are very eager to pay out claims and prove our use case. And because all members share risk, the loss for any individual member is relatively low compared to the loss that a member who holds cover and has experienced a loss has experienced. And the way that the economic incentives and disincentives are set up, it would require so much capital to game the claims assessment process, and you would have to also, do it in such a way that wasn't obvious, which if there is a legitimate claim that meets the terms and conditions of cover wording and it's denied, then it's very clear that, fraud or malicious voting has occurred. So if we look at past claim history, we can see that the first claim payouts happened for the BZX flash loan event that happened in February of 2020. And because the flash loans took advantage of a logic error within the BZX smart contracts, members agreed that this was a coverable event. It's important to note that at the time, the cover product that was active was smart contract cover. That cover product has since been deprecated in favor of protocol cover, which is much more comprehensive. So in this instance, there weren't a lot of cover holders, but there were 3 claims that were accepted and there were 2 claims that were denied. And the total payout here was almost $40,000. And the next event would be the MakerDAO Black Thursday event. This happened in March of 2020. And like I had said before, global markets suffered and crypto was no different. So within MakerDAO, they rely on keepers to liquidate ETH lots when vaults within the MakerDAO system are below the collateral threshold. So because network congestion was so high, keepers weren't fulfilling their role and being active because they were afraid of losing money to slippage, or just having to pay really prohibitive gas costs. So there were a small amount of keepers who were submitting zero DAI bids and winning because there were no other competing bids. And in this way, the code behaved as intended. There wasn't any bug, but it was an unintended use of code. And again, at the time, smart contract cover included things like a bug in the code. And members had talked about this. And while there was an under-collateralized nature within the protocol itself was under-collateralized, this didn't meet the requirements of the cover wording at the time. So all of the claims that were submitted for this event were denied. But because of this, the mutual learned, and when protocol cover was created, this was the exact event that the mutual had in mind when economic design failure was included in the protocol cover wording. So that if an event like this were to happen again, if some outlier event happened, that with economic design failure, we would have that covered under this new cover policy. And then the Yearn YDE hack, which happened in February of this year. So a loss in the YDE Vault was a covered and qualified event according to claims assessors. There were legacy policies that didn't require proof of loss, and those ones were paid out. And there were other claims that were submitted, but those were submitted without proof of loss, and so they were declined. So there were 14 claims accepted and 3 claims denied, and almost 2.5 million in claim payouts. So that's 1,351 ETH and 129,660 DAI. So to date, that's been our biggest payout. So, the mutual has a significant track record of paying out claims and protecting cover holders. And if we look here at the model, here's a visual on how the mutual works. So a member buys cover, and those funds flow into the capital pool. And then from there, if a loss is incurred, a member can file a claim, and that goes to claims assessors, and then they decide whether or not a claim that's filed is legitimate or not. We can see here that risk assessors go through and check code, audit protocols, and determine whether or not a protocol or a custodian or yield token cover product is a safe and trustworthy product with bug-free code. And this just gives a general overview of how things flow through the mutual. So the mutual manages risk by using the specific risk limit. This is what determines how much cover is available when NXM is staked. And then there's the global capacity factor, and only 20% of the total minimum capital requirement in terms of ETH can be underwritten for any one cover policy, and that is to prevent the mutual's capital pool from being lost, essentially, if a large claim event were to happen. So if a protocol like Curve were exploited and there were significant losses and we had to pay out every single claim that we have for cover holders that hold Curve protocol cover, then we would lose 20% of assets in the capital pool, but we would still have 80% of the capital pool left over to fulfill other claims. So that global capacity limit ensures that the mutual can always fulfill claims, and that should give cover holders peace of mind knowing that the mutual always has them covered. And then the minimum capital requirement is the minimum amount of capital in the pool that the mutual needs to be very, very sure that all claims can be paid out in the event of a loss. So this is something that's really important and built into the mutual's bonding curve. That minimum capital requirement is the threshold for cover buys and redemptions. So we always make sure that cover holders have capital backing their cover policies. And then this is just a diagram on the cash flows through the mutual. So cover costs, NXM buys, and investment earnings all add capital to the pool, and NXM sells and successful claim payouts all remove capital from the pool. So that's just a general flow of cash into and out of the Nexus Mutual Capital Pool. So just as an overview, as a member, you can turn idle assets into productive assets to earn passive income while managing your risk. As an artist, if you take some of your profits and put them to work for you, you'll earn additional yield while you're working on your next project. Members have ownership of the mutual and the capital pool through NXM holdings. Any member can participate within the mutual in all of the roles available. They can buy cover, act as a risk assessor, act as a claims assessor, be active in governance. They can find work within one of the Nexus hubs. We have the investment hub, the mutant marketing hub, community engagement hub. There's a lot of opportunities for members to be very active in the mutual. And if you remember, you can contribute to a fundamental money Lego within DeFi. As more people enter the DeFi ecosystem, we'll see more people who are risk averse and want to buy cover products to protect their assets. So if a loss event does occur in DeFi, the mutual can help minimize downside and protect members. So if you're a member of the mutual, Nexus has you covered.
Great. Thank you so much, Vivian DeFi. That was very insightful, and definitely adds more color to creators and designers listening in and understanding more about just the breadth of DeFi, that it's not just about yield farming, but also about protection against loss and risk and cover as well. So we have now our AMA session, there's a number of listeners that have asked different questions. So I'll kind of start with a broader scope. A lot of the focus of Web3 at the moment is on definitely the Metaverse and NFTs. So how is Nexus Mutual looking at kind of new use cases around these areas? Because, you mentioned Black Thursday and kind of, larger risk events in DeFi. But, I guess NFTs and that they're also not immune from kind of hacks or exploitations or people even wanting to, provide protection and cover for some of these really expensive assets. Like we think about CryptoPunks, I'm sure that somebody that owns one of those valuable CryptoPunks, they don't want their, that being, stolen or somehow kind of, exploited. Have you guys looked into these use cases at all, or do you have plans to kind of bridge out into focusing on these topics?
So NFTs are a fascinating use case, and it's something that I would really like to see the Mutual explore more and find cover products, even existing cover products that can help users. The one issue with NFTs is that most people hold them and self-custody them in their own wallets. So Nexus doesn't cover losses for an individual's wallet, because that is something that can be very easily gamed. It's very difficult to determine whether or not somebody is trying to game the system, whether they've removed funds from their own wallet and pose that as someone stealing their seed phrase or their private keys, or if somebody is the subject of a phishing campaign or something like that. So we don't cover holdings within wallets, but we do cover productive assets. So once NFTs are enabled and used as collateral for loans on protocols like Aave, things like that, a really great use case would be putting an NFT into a vault in NFTX, and then staking your vault token when you have supplied liquidity to SushiSwap. Something like that is something the Mutual could cover, because assets then are in the custody of a smart contract, and that's not something that can be easily gamed. So when there are more robust use cases like that, the Mutual will likely be able to cover, but we don't cover assets that are in users' wallets, just due to the fact that it's something that's too easy to game.
Mm-hmm. And could you break down for us a little bit more? You mentioned, like a protocol like Aave, say accepting NFTs is potentially collateral, or lending and borrowing within that. So how do you guys, just to really make it clear for everyone listening in, onboard and choose new projects? Like, say for example, if a completely new protocol launched within the next week and they were allowing for kind of these transactions within NFTs, how would your council and your community, your DAO, assess that, and then potentially, decide to include that within Nexus's broader cover?
So when new protocols or custodians or yield token cover products are added to Nexus, there are certain things that the team and the community look for. So we always want to see that a protocol is audited. We don't want to list a protocol that hasn't taken the steps to secure their smart contracts and have their code audited to make sure that it's secure for their users, and then largely depend on the Mutual to pay out in the event that there's a loss event. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second. The Mutual also looks to see how much TVL is in any given protocol. So if it's a small amount of total value locked, then we know that there's likely not going to be a lot of cover demand for that. So we like to see a little bit more in total value locked, so that we know that that's something that there is appetite for cover. And then generally things are looked through. The most important thing is definitely, is the code safe and trustworthy? Has the protocol been audited? Have measures been taken to ensure that there is a basic level of security? And is the team reputable and trustworthy? There are some protocols where, again, they have money Legos underneath and they don't have some of the underpinnings that the mutual would need to offer robust protection. If assets are going into a protocol and then being put into underlying protocols and there's no interest-bearing token in return, that's something that, there's only limited amounts of cover that we can provide.
Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting question, a comment that you made around the team being trustworthy. So what we're seeing a lot of at the moment in NFTs is the whole kind of profile photo or PFP boom, where people are representing themselves now by, say, an ape or a CryptoPunk or what else has there been, like pandas and so on and so forth. And even, that's become very dynamic, where certain people are kind of like, well, I don't want to be one identity. I want to be able to swap out, be a banana for breakfast and a pickle for lunch and so on and so forth. So that kind of brings under the broader question of KYC. How do you guys see that in the future when we think about the metaverse and really this idea of merging with a digital identity and being natively digital? Is that something that you see being addressed in different ways, or, the Nexus kind of community and council and DAO being able to assess trustworthiness without having, say, a full background knowledge of someone or verifying them against, traditional KYC methods? Like, how are you guys thinking about this, approaching this? And then do you see that there just is more demand in the community for, being more open to assessing identity under different metrics, under different frameworks than what we're used to?
So when projects are listed and we look at a team, we don't make teams KYC or anything like that. It's not so much about if a person is using a panda for their profile picture, but more of their reputation within DeFi and the work they've done. For developers, their GitHub, their portfolio, these are the things that we can look at and see, all right, this person has experience. They haven't just come out of nowhere. If we ask teams certain questions, they're kind of evasive and they don't give us straight answers, it's more things like that. So, but on the broader note, I could speak from my personal point of view on Anons and DeFi. I think that it's like anything else. I always think of it more as pen names with authors in earlier centuries. People always did this because maybe there wasn't broader consensus in certain communities or in society in general, wherever they were. And so they used a pen name, which gave them a little bit of protection, but still allowed them to express themselves creatively. I don't see that any different in DeFi or the way developers operate. They're trying to create new products as a part of a revolution or slow automation of the financial sector. So when we determine whether or not a team is trustworthy, it's not dependent on if they wear a suit and a tie or if they're a pengu or anything like that. So, but as we move into the metaverse and start seeing more fluid identity, it's going to depend a lot on reputation. So on-chain reputation is something that multiple protocols are exploring. ArcX and a lot of these under-collateralized lending protocols that are starting to emerge, they're not depending on KYC, they're depending on reputation and social capital. So that's kind of, from my point of view, the wave that'll really take hold in DeFi.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you that, the idea of reputation, and that is going to underwrite a lot of how we are able to kind of be considered as valuable to certain protocols or projects, or how they assess, our backgrounds and that non-traditional sense of KYC. So with that said, and going more into this idea of the metaverse and different use cases around it, have you guys even seen kind of interesting things like with land within these kind of like virtual worlds, when we think about, coverage or so on and so forth, and branching into different products and services? Have you seen anything, say, on the gaming side or with, virtual lands like Decentraland, Somnium in Space, Crypto Voxels, where people are wanting to kind of have cover on their land plots even, as we're tokenizing new assets, or you're still very much more on kind of the DeFi as we see it today?
So at the moment, the mutual is focused on, productive assets within DeFi and not so much on NFTs and the Metaverse. That is something that's subject to change, but the Metaverse is still very much in its infancy, and there are new things popping up all the time. I think that there are lots and lots of possibilities where instead of interacting with protocols by jumping from site to site, that you walk through Decentraland and Yearn Finance has their own plaza, and you can go in and interact just like you do in Decentraland for the casinos, where you can deposit assets directly into Yearn, and you're in a building, or walking over to Aave and depositing assets or taking out a loan to go use in the ecosystem. So things like that are currently where we are in terms of coverage, which is productive assets in DeFi, custodied within smart contracts in different protocols with custodians, or full stack protection with yield token cover. But as of yet, we don't offer cover products for the Metaverse like land coverage. But these are really interesting products that there will definitely be demand for in the future, and hopefully that's something that the mutual can look into more.
Mm-hmm. And leading on from that, so governance is obviously a really significant part of the mutual, and how you guys just operate. Have you explored different governance features, or we kind of have quite vanilla ones in DeFi and that today, where it's kind of like just token-based voting. But we've seen voices like DIGITALAX speak a lot about, well, how can we kind of expand that out? Like we have quadratic voting, these other mechanisms and structures. Is there anything else that you're exploring, outside of kind of the range that you're in now, of looking at, well, how can we actually introduce more dynamic governance methods, or even ones that are specific to certain risk use cases? Is that something that you're looking at?
At the moment, the development team is focused on enabling dynamic pricing and delegated staking, some of these other features that will be beneficial to users and members. But as far as governance, that isn't something that's currently being looked into, but is always a possibility in the future of more dynamic kinds of governance features within the mutual.
And then another question that we have from one of our listeners they're asking, how many risk assessment companies work with Nexus Mutual to minimize the risk of security or funding issues?
Okay, so in terms of that, if we're talking about auditors, you can look in the Nexus documentation. There are audits on new iterations of code. Every time we have a partnership with DAO, so they monitor the mutual's smart contracts and smart contracts for partners that are listed on Nexus Mutual. So we monitor that smart contract security. If there's a breach, we get a notification. If it's for the mutual itself, or if it's for a partner protocol. So partners that are listed on Nexus are also more secure by virtue of our partnerships. We just, through governance, secured a partnership with ImmuneFi with a matching bounty. So if there is a bounty payout for a disclosure, the mutual will match that. I believe it's up to $100,000 or $200,000. So we have partnerships to help keep Nexus secure, and in addition, partner protocols as well. And as far as risk assessment, there are other brokers like ArmorFi and iTrust Finance that allow for delegated staking outside of the mutual. So people who hold WNXM or NXM can use iTrust for delegated staking. They can stake there and earn rewards through iTrust, and then iTrust will stake their WNXM or NXM within the mutual, and WNXM can be put into ArmorFi, and ArmorFi can manage the staking, and then in return users of ArmorFi get AR and XM.
Mm-hmm. And one point that you've brought up a lot is the idea of demand, and that drives, how kind of Nexus looks at projects and considers, well, what should we cover? Can you speak a little bit more to that? Like in terms of market cycles, you mentioned some pretty big events like Black Thursday last year, and that was kind of shaking a lot of the DeFi market. Do you guys see kind of different cycles of demand that is, based more broadly on, I guess, the broader market activity, like when we see with Bitcoin or Ethereum and kind of these price action? Is that something where you see, okay, more demand in certain days or certain cycles, maybe during the bear market, the bull market, or even, I guess more specific to different kind of use cases that are coming out as well?
Yeah, so whenever the market is changing, like anything else, we'll see higher gas fees and things like that because people are more active with different things. When the cycles change, when we transition from a bull market to a bear market or vice versa, people are buying cover products for different things perhaps. But I think the most important thing is whenever there is a vulnerability disclosed or there is an exploit or a hack on another chain, we tend to see cover policies being bought for protocols on those chains. When we see different events happen, like a new protocol that launches and maybe has to put things into an emergency pause situation because there's a vulnerability in the code, or there's a white hat hack on a protocol where funds are saved when there's a vulnerability. This happened on the Miso platform just, I think, last week or the week before. So when events like that happen, we'll definitely see an uptick in cover being purchased. But as the market moves, so does demand for cover. So some people will buy greater policies when the market is down or when the market is up. Lately, we've seen a lot of demand for Anchor protocol in the Terra ecosystem.
Another interesting question for a lot of designers and creators listening in, and you mentioned this a little bit in your last slides, that Nexus is really active in onboarding new community members. Mm-hmm. What are ways that creators can get involved with Nexus, or even kind of the easiest first step that they can take to engage more with the protocol, with the community? Is there different specific paths or avenues that you'd suggest?
Oh, absolutely. What a great question. I am the marketing lead, and I head up the Mutant marketing department. So I could definitely use artists or designers who would like to help with marketing materials. I think that artists could play a big role within the mutual, contributing to either the community engagement hub or the marketing hub. Anytime there is some kind of announcement or development, it would be amazing if we had more designers and artists who wanted to contribute to the mutual in those ways. We have a program right now that one of our members is developing through a community grant, which, as members are more active and they act as risk assessors or claims assessors, voting through governance, these different roles, they can earn an NFT. So we are definitely moving to a place where we're looking to reward members with NFTs for active participation. And so for all of those different roles, we could definitely use artists and designers who want to get involved. If there are artists and designers who are interested in becoming members or interested in learning how they can help, they can reach out to me, Brave New DeFi, within the Nexus Discord server. There's the marketing sub-channel within the Discord, and in there in general or anywhere in the Nexus Discord, if they tag me, I can definitely respond and talk to them more about that. They can reach out to me on Twitter or Telegram. On Twitter, I'm at Brave DeFi. So if anyone is interested in contributing or becoming a member, they can get a hold of me directly, and I'm more than happy to talk to them about the membership process and how they can contribute to the Nexus hubs.
No, yeah, great answer, because I know that there's a lot of designers and creators out there that would love to take you up on that opportunity and design really cool Nexus Mutual swag or digital fashion or, even kind of more artistic NFTs. So leading kind of to the end of the session, Brave New DeFi, and the last question that I have is, how important does Nexus feel yourself as well on just the significance, I guess, of educational onboarding around kind of risk management in DeFi and crypto? Because it's something that, is brought up a lot with protocols. It's around when you're interacting with them, know your risks, know kind of the potential downside or the vulnerabilities of a specific protocol or just interaction. How are you guys kind of targeting more education in the space so people are aware of, the cover out there that exists, like what you provide, but then also than that, just how they can kind of, I guess, have a broader approach to engaging with DeFi and broader Web3?
Yeah, education is incredibly important. Within the Nexus documentation, we have some resources there. We have a risk assessment resource section. And through there, we talk about the different resources that members can use to look at different risks in DeFi. So there's a whole host of resources there. Beyond that, members can look at the forum. There are a lot of active members. There's one member especially, his name is Mate, and he's a security auditor. He's always trying to further education for risk and DeFi. And beyond that, the Mutual is planning to start more regular meetups within the Discord. So meetups that would be on a weekly basis. We're looking to have Twitter spaces where we talk with different people about risk and DeFi. So there's definitely going to be a lot more educational resources that the Mutual will be putting out to try to increase education on risk and DeFi. But the Mutual itself has quite a few resources on risk and DeFi. We have a lot of relationships with services like ImmuneFi, DAO, and we have a really great community of risk assessors too, who look through and analyze risk. And we have some community risk analysis papers in our documentation as well that people are free to review and look at. So
great. No, really, really great. So that brings us to the close of the session. I don't think we have actually one more question. I'll quickly read this out. We've got a few more minutes. So one of our listeners is asking, what do you think is necessary to enable under-collateralized loans in crypto? And how would you explore ensuring this? Is it something that Nexus is exploring, even looking at things like on-chain activity, decentralized identity to support this?
Yeah, so there are quite a few under-collateralized protocols that will be launched in the relative near future. Right now, I know of one called Maple Finance. So there is like I said before, there's a mix of solutions. So some require KYC, some are more dependent on reputation. So ones that are more dependent on reputation would be protocols like Sublime Finance, Jellyfi. There are other under-collateralized protocols that are targeting other unique users. There's one called Goldfinch Finance that provides zero collateral loans to people in developing nations. So there are a lot of really interesting solutions. From Nexus's point of view, would be about whether or not to list certain under-collateralized protocols. And as more launch and are active, and there are more users taking out loans, then that's something that the Mutual will definitely be eager to look into and potentially list, as long as all of the factors that we talked about before are met. So reputation-based under-collateralized loans are something that I personally think are going to be a big thing. And like I said before, there are lots of protocols that are working on this. There's one interesting project that I'm sure a lot of people on the call are familiar with, and if not, it's ArcX. So they have an experimental system. It's not so much under-collateralized loans, but a reputation-based credit score, so to speak. And if you stake ARCX, you can get a DeFi passport. So there are a lot of protocols that are exploring credit ratings or reputation-based loans, things like that. So I'm very eager to see where all these different developments lead to.
Yeah, I even know the options protocol open. So they just recently launched, I think it was a month ago, partially collateralized options where you only had to put up, a small amount of the premium. I think even it was like something like 30% of the premium or so. So it's that thing, right? It's like flash loans and so on and so forth. It's how do you keep reducing the barriers to entry so that more people can come in, they can engage with the protocols, they can start compounding value, and then build out from there. So yeah, really democratizing more of the space. So just like you, I'm eager to see where people take this and how it builds out and goes from there, because you never know in crypto. The craziest things can kind of be stacked up and built together, but it ends up really, when it does work, it's kind of like this beautiful mathematical engineering problem that's solved. And yeah, so really exciting to see where that's going. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the session at AMA Brave New DeFi. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that everyone has learned a lot around the risk side of DeFi and how that's actually being looked after by Nexus Mutual. So yeah, thank you for coming on. And I'm sure that a lot of them will take your offer to reach out and also join the Nexus Discord. Now I'll drop the link in the AMA chat as well in our Discord channel. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was wonderful.
Great. Thank you.